This is the 2025 CF Moto 675SR-R. Okay, so the CF Moto 675SR-R. A cool looking bike indeed. It's got some really nice design cues. I actually think this thing looks pretty sick. It kind of looks like how the music to Cyberpunk 2077 sounds, if you know what I mean. So this bike is really interesting because when it was announced, everybody thought, holy crap, a 675 sport bike. We know that Triumph stopped making the Daytona 675. They brought out the 660, which, let's be honest, that's a CBR 650 with a Triumph badge on it. It's not a real Daytona. And CF Moto seems to have stepped in the ring with a 675 sport bike. Let's have a look at what they're offering. Okay, so first up is the donk, the engine, the powerhouse of the machine. This is a 675cc 3-cylinder engine. It's an inline 3, very reminiscent of what Yamaha's doing with the MT-09 and what Triumph has done for a very long time now with the 675 motor or the 660 or 765, whatever. However, it is a totally new thing. It is its own engine. It's not blueprinted off of anything else as far as I can tell. And it's just here for this bike and the naked version. So the big question on everyone's minds when this came out is how powerful is this going to be? Well, because it's not blueprinted off of a Daytona engine, you can expect it to have different figures, and it does. It has wildly different power figures than that motor. This is actually putting out 94 horsepower at the crank, so you do lose a bit of that in mechanical loss when it gets to the wheel, so you're not really getting 100 horsepower out of it at all. However, it does make up for that a little bit by having pretty high torque numbers with 70 Newton meters of torque. Now, that's all measured at 11,000 RPM. This bike actually only goes up to 11,000 RPM. It doesn't go any higher than that. So that's pretty much at redline. I don't know if there's options you can do with tuning to increase that. There probably is. And if, you know, the racing development team has different packages and stuff, that's entirely possible. One of the first things I did notice, though, is this actually doesn't rev very high. How does that feel when you're riding it? Well, unfortunately, a little bit underwhelming, to be honest. It kind of makes similar power to a 660 motor, except de-restricted. So if you were to get a Lambs approved Daytona 660 or Street Triple or Trident or any of those bikes and de-restrict it, you would be getting pretty much the same acceleration experience out of this. However, they do rev a little bit higher and they are a little bit more revvy. So this power curve is like a totally flat line, straight up to redline. Whereas on the Triumph 3 cylinders, it's more of a bell curve and you do sort of get that rush up at the top where you don't really get that with this engine at all. So the bike does feel really smooth. I don't have any problems so far with that. The throttle is a little bit twitchy at the low end, but that's okay too. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's feeling pretty good. I just feel like there might be some issues if you were trying to do some wheelies and stuff. A tune might be something you'd want to get when it comes to this bike. So only making 94 horsepower at the crankshaft is pretty low for this, even though it makes a comparatively good amount of torque to the horsepower. It's still quite low compared to its competitors like the R9 and all that sort of thing. Now, my daily is an R7, and I honestly feel like this competes with the R7 in power delivery. Not so much the way it delivers the power, but the amount of power that you get is very R7-like to me, which is kind of disappointing because this is supposed to be a 675. You know, when you hear 675, you think it's a Daytona clone. Now, the Quickshifter feels fantastic. It works at low RPM, high RPM, no worries. You don't get an auto blipper though, and I understand why not, because it's got a cable throttle. However, that is something that I sort of expected to be on here just because of how ubiquitous they've become. But that doesn't really take away from the bike too much. I mean, motorcycles for time memoriam haven't had quick shifters or auto blippers, and no one complained until it started becoming standard on everything. And to be honest, for 12 grand, you are still getting a lot of bike here. It definitely doesn't feel like an upgrade from a de-restricted Lambs bike. So if you are thinking, oh, I've got the 450SR or I've got an R7 and this is a really cheap upgrade onto something that's not Lambs, it's 675, it's all this, it's a 3-cylinder. Well, the truth is you're not really getting that much extra power over a 650cc Lambs bike at all. Like, it really does not feel like that much more power. Where it makes up for that, though, is in the handling, because this thing handles like an absolute dream, which I did not expect, but I kind of had a hint that it was going to happen considering the 450 handled so well. So a big part of the handling is this fully adjustable suspension up the top. I haven't touched it, and I don't think the owners touched it either. It feels fantastic. Honestly, the front end on this bike feels great. This steering damper here, it's adjustable. It feels good. It does its job. I didn't get any tank slappers. The head stem feels totally controllable. It was really good. With the rear suspension, it is also adjustable, as if you would on any sort of basic stock suspension like this that does come adjustable. So it's really good. I'm a very big fan of it. I'm quite impressed with how the bike handles so far. The geometry though, well, we need to talk about that. First thing I've noticed upon riding this bike is that it is very uncomfortable and I don't like the seating position at all. The reason I don't like the seating position is because the fuel tank is bulbous. It's kind of like the old Kawasaki Z bikes, how the fuel tank sort of comes up and it pushes into my chest and my gut. Now granted, I'm not the thinnest guy in the world, but I can ride most bikes without a problem, but when they have this like bulbous fuel tank design, it's actually quite bothersome. You do sit in this bike, not on it, so it isn't really following the modern design principle of a super sport where you sit on the bike, you've got that 60-degree angle with your legs and you're really hunched over. You are quite in this bike, which has its ups and downs. The good thing is you're low to the ground, it's easy to control, and especially if you're a shorter rider, you're not going to have much of an issue riding this at all. But the problem with that is that you're really laying on the fuel tank by grabbing both of the handlebars because they are still quite low. And it kind of feels a little bit uncoordinated. I'm not really a big fan of it. When I was going through the corners though, it handled great and the seating position didn't seem like a problem at all. That's something that I only really feel when I'm taking it somewhere, like going up the road or riding on a straight line for a long time. Now, just like the 450, this comes with CST tires on it. These ones here, I'll show you the tread pattern in a second. They're blatantly a rip-off of Rosso 4s. They feel pretty much the same as a Rosso 4. The tread pattern looks the same. It's just slightly modified. When I was riding through the twisties, I didn't have any issue. As you can see, I haven't gone all the way to the edge or anything, but I have put the power into the ground with traction control off, and I haven't had any slippage whatsoever. But granted, it's 30 degrees today, so I don't know. Your mileage may vary, especially in cold weather. The electronics on this bike, one thing that I do like is, look at that, magic button. So straight away, without any hassle, as long as you're not using throttle, even if you're moving, you can switch the traction control off and start doing monos, which I'll talk about in a minute. But the electronics package is super basic. So you can see here that you've got quite a lot of information. It's got tire pressure sensors and monitors and all that sort of stuff, which is pretty good. But if you go into the menus and all that sort of stuff, there's no modes or anything like that. You've just got your basic setup and all that sort of thing. Honestly, it's really quite lackluster as far as electronics go. But again, it's a very cheap bike for what it is. Like, you're paying 12 grand for this thing. An R7 costs like 16 now. So realistically, this is still good bang for your buck. Keep that in mind. So I've got some viewer questions now, and if you do want to leave me a question about a bike I review, or actually ask me anything, make sure you follow me on Instagram. It's at senditwithshan, because you can access me there as far as communications and all that sort of stuff go a lot better than YouTube. And when I do review one of these bikes, I usually put up a story and say, hey, this is the bike I'm filming, ask me some questions about it. So one of the viewer questions is, what about this versus an R6? Well, there's absolutely no contest. I don't really know how to tell you how different they are. This is called a super sport bike by CF Moto, and Yamaha called the R6 a super sport bike. That's about all they have in common. The R6 is literally a world super sport bike with headlight indicators, road gear. right? This CF Moto is 100% a sport touring road bike that's cosplaying as a race bike. Let's not get that confused here at all. They are very different. I would put this in the same category of bike as a CBR 600 F4i. Those older 600s that weren't as aggressive as the modern super sports, but were still kind of quick and, you know, but reasonably comfy. You could go touring on them. This is in the same category of bike as those. This is definitely not in the same category of bike as a CBR 600 RR or an R6 or anything like that, for that matter. Another question is wheelies. Is it smooth to wheelie? Is it nice to wheelie? I can't get this to do a wheelie in second gear at all. And, you know, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I can mono, right? I'm pretty good at wheelies. I still can't do it. There's something about the power delivery, and I believe that the map's not letting me do it either, which is really weird. Because if I go into second gear now, right, so I'm in second gear, and forgive me for the sun being in my eyes, but I get into, you know, what's this, 2,000, 3,000 RPM? Nothing. So I'm in second gear, turn traction control off, so you close the throttle, hold traction control, turns off, you see the tiny little yellow light there. So I'm in second gear now. What the fuck? What the fuck is that about? It won't do it at all. I'm doing like 60 kilometers an hour and it won't wheelie in second gear. I can do a 60 kilometer an hour second gear wheelie on a restricted street triple. So the braking system's really good. These J Juan brakes, I don't know if that's how you say it, but these brakes are pretty good. They're Spanish made. They're basically on the same level as Brembo, pretty much. They're just Spanish Brembos, pretty much. There's got a brake cooling thing here, which is pretty cool. Honestly, that's sort of track wank, just like wings and aero and stuff is, but it's there. It looks cool. It makes it look faster than it is, I guess. So it's kind of weird to say, but after riding this bike through the hills and, you know, experiencing everything it has to offer, genuinely, I think I'd rather the 450. So strange of me to say that, but at least with the 450, I don't feel like I'm wondering where the power is. I know what that bike's going to bring to the table. I feel like if you owned this for a while, you'd get used to it. But after riding the 450 so recently, that's a better bike than this. So look, at the end of the day, if you are looking for a sport bike that's reasonably quick, this isn't a bad option, especially for the price. However, if it were me personally, I'd finance the extra and get a ZX6R, or, you know, and I'd pay the same amount of money and get an older Daytona 675R. I can't really see why you would buy this over an older super sport bike. It definitely exceeds the CF Moto expectations. The build quality's fine. It seems reliable enough. 3-cylinder engines are pretty good. They have been for a while now. And being Chinese, if anything does happen, it's probably pretty cheap and easy to replace. The electronics package is okay. It doesn't have any bells and whistles. You've got an up quickshifter, no down quickshifter, and you can turn the traction control off. You can't turn off the ABS. That's about it. Other than that, it's really bog standard. I like that it's got a cable throttle, but it's a little bit too twitchy. If you could tune that out or maybe adjust the throttle cables and put a shim in there, I think that would probably sort it out. But overall, it's a very good bike, and it is impressive that CF Moto has been able to create this entirely of their own accord. They're not building an engine for KTM or anything. This is their bike, which is great. I just wish it was LAMS approved, because the fact that it isn't LAMS approved really makes me struggle to see where I could put this in a hierarchy of other bikes. Exceeded expectations, and I'm really excited to have a go on the 1000 when it comes out, the V4. I'm really keen to have a go on that. Hopefully that doesn't underwhelm me with the power. I don't see how it could if it's 1000cc, but you know, you never know. You never know. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and when you do comment, let me know what the next bike you want to see me review is, and I'll try and make it happen. I will see you guys in the next video.